Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. You have been tuning in, correct? You've heard Sean Whalen. You've heard Andy Stumpf. You've heard Nicholas Bailey, and just published his episode, Young Man Doing Big Things, overcame weight issues, overcame low self-esteem, overcame lack of drive as a teenager, married a beautiful woman, and they are making a great living doing what they love, and they're still in their mid-20s. Go back and check out that episode and all the others. Listen at double speed so you can listen twice and take a lot of notes. Today we have Brian Keith Noonan. What a cool dude. He was a Marine, not once, but twice, even though you're always a Marine once you're a Marine. There's no ex-Marines. You probably know that. They're only former Marines. But he re-upped after 9/11 to go get after it. And so that's my kind of guy. But he tells his story, which is quite interesting, of how he got started in being an entrepreneur and having a business, how he put it on hold, how he made mistakes, how he built it back up, and now has a paid waiting list of clients. So, as always, you're in for a treat. And just like in Nicholas's interview, you know, again, these things are unscripted. We don't cover anything ahead of time. Nicholas reiterated how important it was to know how to sell. Brian gets into that as well. You got to know how to sell. And you'll see that in all of these interviews. You know, and I've had all types of people. I mentioned Andy Stumpf, retired Navy SEAL. You know, he has to sell himself on doing his events. He has sponsors that enable him to compete in and holding these 2 world records for parachuting, right, for distance and with these winged suits. So, you know, no matter what you're in, even Navy SEALs, they're selling the command on allowing them to execute a mission, or the command is selling the troops below them on why they need to go on a certain mission or why a mission is denied. Everything is sales. I'm selling my kids, you know, why they shouldn't have more dessert and should go brush their teeth, should go to bed earlier. You know, I'm selling my wife on why she should let me get a motorcycle and go golfing more and whatever else, right? You get the point. It's all sales. So you're going to hear how Brian talks about that as well and drives that point home. You have to get comfortable with sales and marketing. And, you know, great marketing makes sales easy, but great selling makes great marketing possible. It all starts there. That's why we have the Make Every Sale program. Come join us. As soon as I record this intro here, I am jumping into our weekly live call. MakeEverySale.com is where you can join us. Have access to the 41 videos, the 60-plus page workbook, past recordings, the additional templates and documents I give in our private group, and then real-time, all-the-time access and support through the private group. You know, we help you with landing pages, copywriting, voicemail scripts, whatever. It's all sales. Because once you're good at that, then your marketing is going to get better. Your email marketing will get better. Your letters and direct mail is going to get better. It all gets better. All right? So join us there. Make every sale. Now, let's bring on our guest. Brian Keith Noonan, the Marine Marketing Magician, all the way from Charleston, South Carolina. Welcome to the Sales Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
Great, Wes. Thanks a lot for having me.
So
I'm really honored to see the crowd of people that have come before me on your podcast here.
Hey, look, flattery will get you everywhere. Okay? So
That's
keep it up. Keep it up. You're off to a good start. So what is that? What is the Marine Marketing Magician? Okay, you got to explain that.
Yeah, well, somebody called me that the other day, and having been a Marine veteran actually 2 separate times, it's certainly a part of my history, but I don't tie it that much into my current business of online lead generation and advertising. But they brought it together and called me that on their podcast, and I thought that has a nice ring to it.
So a twice over Marine, does that make you like almost as good as a one-time Air Force guy?
Oh man!
I mean, I'll let you think about that, and you know we'll come back to that later on.
Them's fighting words.
So what are you up to, man? What is Buzz Source Agency? What are you working on these days?
What we do is specialize in taking the technological aspects of online lead generation and taking it off our clients' plates, doing the whole thing for them. And we have a very comprehensive process to work with them in terms of building sales funnels and websites from the ground up, and then running ads to them, especially Facebook and Google ads, and optimizing the whole process as we go along.
Right.
That would be pretty much it in a nutshell. Coming from a more of a web design background and getting most into the direct response model over the past 5 years, I'm happy to say that we've become sought-after experts in the industry. And, I remember selling my first website back in 1998 for $500 and being really thrilled. And at this point, you can't probably work with us for much less than $50,000, but there are exceptions to that. And I got a couple of groups and things like that to, make sure that all the deserving businesses that don't necessarily have that kind of budget can get the knowledge,
So how do you go from being a Marine to building websites? I mean, 1998, man, that's old school. That's Adobe Dreamweaver. That's hard coding HTML.
Yeah, Dreamweaver, front page, stuff like that. It's a kind of an interesting story, I guess. My main work experience as a teenager was, typical, I guess, and for the most part, mowing lawns and stuff like that. And I actually was an artist apprentice at one point, and then got kind of into the textile industry, which is the business my father was in. So learned all about fabrics and importing them from Japan and around the world, India and so forth, and kind of was in that business for a while. And then I went into the Marine Corps the first time. From 94 to 98. And when I came back, I was starting to work with my dad a little bit in his business, but realized that it was kind of declining, at least domestically. A lot of the manufacturing was going offshore and things like that. And the garment district in New York City was kind of going down rather than going up at the time. And what I thought was going up was the internet. And from experience, I remember it distinctly, actually, being out on Okinawa, emailing back and forth to someone back in the States in real time. And I just thought, this is the most amazing thing. So even though it wasn't typical at the time and most businesses did not have websites, then I decided to teach myself how to build them and start selling them.
Very cool. So, I mean, you got out in 98. I mean, did you just have a crash course and jump in, or were you learning it while you were still stationed overseas?
No, I just pretty much jumped in and taught myself how to do it.
That's awesome.
And I will say that my first websites at that time looked very much like a kindergartner did them by today's standards. but back in the late 90s, that was what was up.
You mean that first site's not still up in its original state? What the heck?
Thank God it's not. Dude, if it was, I'd pay someone to take it down.
What a different world 19 years later, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so you're teaching yourself web design. How did you get that first client?
It was just a cold call, and I started looking at local businesses. Believe it or not, it was for a business that no longer exists, which was a CD store. So a guy selling the store dedicated to CDs. It's almost kind of went the way of the Blockbuster kind of thing. But it was a store that I shopped in, and I kind of just started working with a warmish market and called around through the phone book until I found somebody who would talk to me.
Yeah, people probably can't believe that, but there was a day not too long ago that companies didn't have websites, huh?
Yeah, well, very few companies did, and there was definitely a wide open market. If anything, I was a little before my time, really, because no one thought they needed it at that time. Now it's kind of a given that they have a website, but
sure.
No one thought they needed it. And the way it worked out, luckily, is I did a really great job for those first few clients and was referred to bigger and bigger clients from there, and even hired by some clients, a couple of software companies that was there pitching a website and they wanted me to work for them. So I did that in tandem with having my own web design company. So it's been an interesting progression.
So they hired you as an employee?
Yeah.
Cool. And were they cool with you having a side gig, or they just not know?
Yeah. At first they were, because they wanted me to work for them. They liked the way I sold, actually. But eventually, no, not as much. I think in hindsight, no one that's paying you a generous full-time salary really wants to feel like you're spending any time doing anything else.
Right.
Not that the work was suffering in any way, but it just wasn't optimal. And I was realizing also I just like being on my own and being an entrepreneur better than working for anybody else anyway.
Right.
But that decision was kind of made up for me in a way, because then 9/11 happened.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's when I felt like I'm a Marine and there's a fight on. I was up in New York when 9/11 happened, and it just really affected me, and I got really pissed off and wanted to get back in the fight. So That's what I did.
And so how long did you was that tour?
Another 4 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So 05 rolls around, you're like, all right, time to get back to being a civilian.
Yeah. Well, it was actually 06. I didn't actually make it in until it took a little while to get back in, and I actually needed an age waiver and stuff like that. Although I wouldn't have been able to get back in the Marine Corps at all if it weren't for my prior service. I was 31 at the time.
Right.
So did that, went interesting places and had a lot of unique experiences that I didn't have my first time around when there was no official war going on.
Right.
And then when I came back, I was still kind of in that web design vein. Social media was coming around, and so we did some internet marketing around those kind of aspects of things. But then I discovered the direct response model and how people were using advertising and sales funnels and autoresponder emails and marketing automation, and realized that this is the way that I need to go. So that's what I sort of made that maybe 90-degree turn to that to what I'm doing now.
Who was doing marketing automation in 06?
Well, it was more like 2010 to 12 or so I made that change. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because that's pretty early.
Yeah. I wasn't really that aware of that aspect of online marketing at that time.
Right.
But what happened was, what I realized was, at a certain point, I was creating something for someone that did add credibility and was really nice and nice to have type thing, but it wasn't a tangible addition to their bottom line. Whereas with the direct response, when I'm bringing in leads for someone that they sell, or bringing in sales to a shopping cart online, that's directly tracked and attributed to what I'm doing for them. So they're a lot happier, they're willing to pay a lot more money, and it works out better for all of us.
Yeah, cool. So, all right, so you're bumping along. You jump back in the business that you knew, right?
Yes.
And so, I mean, you immerse yourself, and you keep looking for new things, right? Better things, but direct response. That are you talking about like Dan Kennedy style, direct mail, sort of direct response, or
more of the primarily online version of it?
Okay.
So, the same. It's the same thing, I think, and we use direct mail sometimes as well. But the vast majority of what we do is online. And now there are gaps being bridged between the online and offline in terms of how things can be tracked and attributed to certain campaigns, whether they're offline or online. And we do a lot of that. But what Dan Kennedy was doing, the online version. So anyone from just people like, and I'm going to think back to when I first started, but people come to mind like the digital marketer guys and the Russell Brunsons, and those are all more probably recent names, but they're the ones that Perry Marshall, guys like that.
Right, sure. Yeah, Perry's awesome. I mean, he's a student of Dan's, you know.
Yeah. Dan's old school, and whatever he did or does offline and now online, works to this day. So I'm definitely a student of guys like that, for sure.
Well, so that brings up a good point. I mean, what are some consistents? What are some things that haven't changed in, now what was it, 98? So, 19 years of doing this.
Well, it's actually more like 15 if you subtract that second tour in the Marines. But it's still a great question.
Well, sure, but you may not have been doing it, but you did from beginning to now. Still,
yes.
It's 19 years since you got started. So, I mean, what have you seen that's remained steady?
Oh, wow. Well, good copy, good sales copy has always been good, and it's not any different than it was back then. But I would say practically everything else has changed. All the technologies have changed, with the exception of maybe WordPress, right, or something like that, which I can't even remember what year that came out. But things like that, some basic web technologies haven't changed. But all these different tools to build the sales funnel pages and all these different CRM tools, like I noticed you're into. I became an Infusionsoft partner and have not played with HubSpot that much, but I just recently started, so I may have some questions for you about that.
Okay.
But your active campaigns, which are taking technology that previously was unavailable without an investment like Infusionsoft and bringing it kind of into the mainstream.
Right.
So all these things are very exciting. Your ClickFunnels, your lead pages, all these different things that really were no one had even started considering back at that time.
The interesting thing is, what you said right off the bat was good content, right? Copywriting hasn't changed. And I think people forget that there's a human being on the other end of that ClickFunnel, of that email campaign, of that SMS, of that piece of mail, right? And that'll never change, right? I mean,
exactly. That's kind of the bridge for building a relationship. So relationship building has not changed. And building trust and rapport with a prospect hasn't changed.
Right.
And what it takes to retain clients hasn't changed.
Right.
So that's the real meat of it. And then it's just a different medium of how they're being brought into your world and your solution.
Right. So I noticed, so your website is actually it's just a ClickFunnels landing page. How did you decide, how to do that? Whether to go like with your own website, with WordPress or whatever, with a landing page of its own versus a self-hosted, solution like ClickFunnels?
Well, that's a great question. And I was a big fan of ClickFunnels for about the first year they were out. And I will say that I've gotten, even though my landing page is still on there, I've gotten away from it with most of my clients because of some uptime issues for the most part, and then kind of feeling like they're trying to be all things to all people instead of the best of breed of sales funnel building. They're trying to be the email system, and they're trying to be the CRM, and they're trying to be all these other things, where I prefer to use the the best of breed of each of those pieces and integrate them together. In terms of a direction to go for my clients, sometimes they'll do something like a ClickFunnels, use ClickFunnels just for expediency and speed to market. I have no problem with that. But I like to see them all eventually get to a self-hosted solution, like a WordPress type solution, in which case we would either keep the ClickFunnels for the sales funnel portion of it, or even better, go to a Thrive Leads or an Optimized Press type solution for the sales funnel pages.
Right.
All based on WordPress.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening.
Yeah, amen. I mean, it's even, and nothing's perfect, right? Even WordPress. I mean, I still use it, and I built my site on it, and I moved to HubSpot's hosting, I don't know, a year and a half ago, but that was for more personal and support reasons. But you can make a WordPress website fast, and the good and bad is all of the features, right? And all the free plugins or inexpensive plugins, and next thing you know, you have 87 plugins, your site's running sluggish, and then one update turns your whole website white, right? It's like,
yeah, there are things to be cautious of, but I love the modularity of it.
Yeah.
Seeing as it's I think what half the world's websites are built with WordPress or something like that.
Crazy, yeah.
That there are so many things that have been developed for it and so many integrations that work with it that you're not going to run into a problem with that. And you'll be able to get the functionality that you want, and you'll be able to get the design that you want. So I like it a lot.
Now, how big is your team now? What does that look like?
My team hovers around a half dozen or so.
Okay.
And I have some people that come in more on a per project basis, but we have myself, who's mostly doing strategy and bigger picture things at this point, although I have my sleeves rolled up in a lot of the ads as well on a frequent basis. We have some copywriters, we have some funnel architects, or one funnel architect, one branding specialist, one website specialist, and an ad specialist in Facebook and in AdWords in Google.
Right.
So we can always, at given time, depending on people's project loads, we may bring on, we might have 3 copywriters going at one time, for instance, or we might have 4 ad specialists going at a given time. But I would say the core team is about 6.
Now, do you just sub that out? Do you just bring in contractors to augment the push?
Yeah, with the caveat that there are people that they're known quantities, they're people that I know are the best out there, and so it's not just any kind of willy-nilly type thing, there are people that I've done usually smaller to larger projects with, so they're a proven quantity to me, and right. I know I can hand off the parts that I do to them and not have any problem. And especially like working with people who have done different aspects of this in addition to their real specialty, so that the copywriter has some understanding of what the web designer is doing and has some idea of what the sales funnel looks like, or
right.
sort of cross discipline type.
How do you know if somebody is a good fit for your company?
I have a super secret and unique way of bringing people on that I normally stick with, but it has to do with them proving themselves ahead of time before they get paid for anything.
Right.
And not something that takes a huge amount of time, but just to give them a couple of tasks that I'll be evaluating for them to execute, and it tells me a lot about kind of what they're made of in terms of self-motivation and reliability and skill.
Right. Have you had to fire very many?
No, I can only think of right now one.
Very nice.
In the recent past, anyway. I mean, maybe back going a little further. before I really got it down in terms of who I wanted to work with.
Right.
But we have clients that are paying top dollar for our services, and I can't afford to have mistakes going on.
Right. How have you evolved your pricing model? You talked about the opening that you did your first website for $500, and now it could easily be $50,000. And most of my clients and entrepreneurs I work with struggle with pricing. They seem to be afraid to raise their prices. It's one of the first things I have them do, though, when I work with them.
Oh, big time! You hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah, I mean, how'd you evolve from $500 to $50,000?
Well, so first of all, there are two very different things that they're getting in terms of 1998 sort of glorified brochure online,
sure,
versus 2017 a complex, multi-technology automated marketing and sales system, custom built. So
right.
Big, huge difference. But the way I evolved the pricing and kind of gets back to what I mentioned, that the web design wasn't adding tangibly to the bottom line. And once I found the direct response, then it all became quantifiable because we have all the tracking and analytics in place, and I can tell exactly where someone comes from. That becomes a sale. So when I saw how good the results were, then it wasn't hard to bring the pricing up. And also it was a matter of project load. So there was no waiting list back in '98 for me to make a website for anybody. But now we often do have a waiting list, even where our initial engagement would probably run between our services and the ad spend, into $50,000 for the first few months easily.
And is that including the web design plus the advertising budget?
Well, there's two main types of client that will come to me. There's the one that's building something from the ground up, and then there's the one that has an online sales and marketing process that wants to optimize it and increase it.
Right.
So it can vary, but pretty much one way or the other, whether we're building something from scratch or we're retrofitting and optimizing something that already exists, it's going to be about the same. What we strive for is to hit our ROI as soon as possible with what we're doing, and depending if something's new or something has some sales history and is a proven winning product, program, service, we can get there faster sometimes than other times. So our minimum engagement is 3 months, but I always tell people up front, expect to work together. Well, ideally we work together forever, but expect before we see the results that we all want and the ultimate results, it's going to be 6 months to a year easily.
Right.
And I always give people the straight dope on that, because there are a lot of people running around preaching rainbows and unicorns and essentially over-promising and under-delivering. And I'm not that kind of guy.
Yeah. So do you screen them basically with the verbiage and your persona, and basically, because that's a tough conversation to have, right? Today's day and age, everybody wants everything now.
Yeah.
Right. And to say, hey, bud, A, this is going to be a lot of money, and B, it's going to take a long time.
Yeah. I find that process, that sorting process, works almost by itself if I'm very upfront and straightforward with them and honest with them, because I know what it's going to take, and I know how much is going to go into it. And I also know that most of my clients are coming to me and saying, I want to make at least $1 million with this year. And in some cases it's per month. So with those numbers, it's not hard to justify what we get paid,
right,
to do it. And we're really we're going to make or break their business. It's a huge responsibility. It's huge numbers in ad spend, daily ad spend and things like that. My biggest nightmare, and knock on wood, it hasn't happened, but going to bed one night and waking up and 100K of clients' monies, have been blown on the wrong ad. That was another reason I left ClickFunnels, by the way.
Right. Why is that?
Because we had ads. I remember specifically was right around, and I have no problem with the people who created ClickFunnels. I think they did a great job, but the reason I don't use it and recommend it anymore is that we had a ton of ads running, and it was right around Thanksgiving, I believe, last year. They were down for like the better part of 2 or 3 days. It was bad. Yeah. And then that was really the wake up call. Like, we can't depend on someone else's infrastructure like this. I don't know if they're taking on too many people at once or changing, developing new things too fast or what it was. But back to the conversation, we have safeguards in place, so that scenario doesn't happen. We don't go to bed and then wake up to a huge, expensive mistake, to a 6-figure mistake.
Right.
And we don't run ads in a way that if something's down, we wouldn't discover that quickly, because we keep our eyes on things like that all the time. But it takes a lot of vigilance, and it takes a lot of skill to achieve the ROI and then scale it.
Yeah. But I mean, were you doing kind of the grunt work? I mean, did you have to work your way up? You come back from Marines, 06, 07, were you doing $1,000 websites, and then 2,000 or did you find you had kind of a knack for it and ramped up quickly?
So back I have to keep saying the web design business was really an almost completely different business than what I'm doing now. So in terms of pricing for that, I ramped up depending on the complexity, and also my skill level continued to increase. And then we got into things like e-commerce sites and so forth. So the $1,000 and $1,500 sites became $2,500 sites to $5,000 to $7,500 and so on, so forth. So our capabilities expanded. I had a smaller team then, and we were able to take on bigger projects until I realized that there was a better way, and I'd rather be doing this whole thing with a focus on lead generation. So everything that we do, and even in terms of how we advise our clients on their organic marketing, is geared toward bringing that lead from where you'd have to pay to have someone's eyes on something into owning that lead, and you can market to them indefinitely for next to nothing in terms of cost once they're on your email list or your text marketing list and so forth.
Right.
So it's all driven toward bringing people into your prospects, your ideal prospects, into your marketing world, and ideally through these automated systems, having them about 75% sold that you're the guy and you got the right solution to solve their problem.
Yeah. People always say, do what you love and you'll never work a day of your life. But then others say, find a need and fill it. Right? And that's the secret to success. I mean, where would you say you fall on that spectrum, of doing what you love versus finding a need and filling it and just getting good at it? And then maybe falling in love with what you're doing. You know what I mean? Yeah, great.
Great question. Well, I'm not sure if I'll hit these in order, but I'll try to touch on all of them. As I was learning about all this and how to do it, and building this business at first, it was me doing everything. And I realized pretty quickly that it wasn't so much a matter of not liking doing everything because it was exciting building a business, but it led to a lot of stress and a lot of burnout pretty quickly. So I realized I needed a team, and I think typically entrepreneurs realize that they don't anticipate it, for instance. So they start going to look for a team when they already needed a team yesterday. And so there could be some growing pains around that. But the more I do the strategic, bigger picture aspects, play those roles in my business, the happier I am. And I love working with the team.
Right.
And I love interacting with the clients. When I have to do everything, and even though I know how to, and it's my job to be the expert on Facebook ads and Google ads and sales funnels and analytics and all these things, I don't like to be deep into that all the time. I prefer having more of a supervisory role. So in terms of what I love doing it, and there's an undeniable need in the market for my services. All businesses need sales leads and sales.
Right.
So that's a no-brainer. And I love what sometimes the intricacies or the problem solving that's involved in what I do. And I love taking a business and no matter where they are to exponentially improve what they're doing is very satisfying, right. As well as helping. I consider myself something of a liberator of my clients from that feast and famine cycle that so many people are in, and without an automated, consistent marketing system.
Right.
They're stressed out. They're having money problems. Their lifestyle and their families don't see them, and there's a lot of problems that come from not having a consistent, predictable, quality flow of leads coming into your business. And I know that we can solve that problem for them, and you almost can't put a price tag on that,
Right.
So I totally agree with your philosophy that if someone's good at what they do, they should probably be charging 2 to 3 times as much, if not more. And a lot of people run into issues with that. They're not confident yet, what have you. But if anything, they can do it in a gradual way. And if they can show what I call, if they can connect the dot to the dollar, I like to say, like show how directly connect, even if it's nothing to do with business, even if it's like a personal coach of some sort or what have you, they can connect with what they're doing to the bottom line and why it's worth paying them that much.
Right. So you said something earlier, where you said you try to remain the expert. How do you balance that between knowing all the buttons to push versus eventually, you can't be the one pulling the trigger, right? Eventually you get promoted, and you're the gunny sergeant, and you gotta tell people what to do. Maybe now you're not the expert anymore, right? Maybe you're not the best at the radio. Maybe you're not the best at the grenade launcher, How do you balance that?
It has to do, it really comes down to the team building. And that's what, I'm an expert at the higher end, bigger picture strategy, and I can drive the team that can create that result. And so that's what I'm the expert at now. I don't have to be the expert on the putting an ad up on Google.
Right. So over time,
my organization can produce that result. We can produce it in a bigger, better way and for more people than I ever could by myself.
Right. So your role is shifting, right, to more of a leader versus the tech expert.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy with that. I have to keep my finger on the pulse of all the new technologies, and I have to get into these things on a regular basis just to make sure it's fresh in my mind, which I do actually through a couple of groups I have that I do live calls and work on people's projects for the group, like a hot seat type concept.
Right.
And so I'll find myself sometimes doing things like last week I was installing WordPress and connecting it to ActiveCampaign. And it's not something I do every day anymore. But, I like to I stay in the game, but I have to be able to delegate. Otherwise, there's no scalability. There's no leverage.
Right. Was that tough? Was it scary the first time you handed over something big?
Yeah. And, for me it was. And I could see how it ultimately would be a great thing, but there's going to be, mistakes happen. Like, it's not going to happen. Things are not going to happen necessarily the exact way you do them. But that's how someone learns, and that's how you train people, and that's how you eventually get away from doing everything yourself, because it's impossible if you're going to have a business of any kind of scale to do it all yourself.
Right.
No matter what you're charging per hour. Right. It eventually maxes out. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But I want to be able to take this gift of liberation from feast and famine to as many people as I can. And I'd be extremely limited if I could only do it myself.
Right.
But now I have a team that can be working on different projects, and I'm supervising the whole thing. And I'm very much involved in the projects. I'm very much involved with the clients. I meet with them on a weekly basis on a video call like this. And so I'm their primary point of contact, and I'm the guy who finds out what's right and what's wrong. And the buck stops here. So even if one of my guys makes a mistake, guys or gals, I'm responsible, and I take care of it.
Right. Are you taking like leadership type courses? Are you working on yourself as a manager? Or are you just kind of feeling it out as you go? How do you make sure you're a good leader?
I make sure I'm a good leader mostly through coaching and mentoring. And over the past 4 or 5 years, I've been involved with a lot of great coaches and mentors that have been expensive but entirely worth it. Mm-hmm. And have really made a difference in how I see business and how I see life. And always learning, always growing, because it's too easy to fall into a rut or to think that you know everything, or just stagnate,
Right.
So to your question, I'm not taking, like, I'm never going to get an MBA, right? Because what I'm learning is in the trenches. It's that much more relevant and in real time from people who have done things in business that are beyond my wildest dreams. So I know that they're qualified to give me the straight dope on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got Marines beating down my door they want more Air Force coaching, man. It's
oh man,
it's unbelievable. But they want to give me like an MRE or some old, spent 50 cal casing. I'm like, no, dude, I need money.
There's an old joke about securing a building. Have you ever heard that? How Marines secure a building and how the Army secures it. So I would tell it to you right now, but.
Come on, bring it.
Yeah, I will send it to you after, because I'm going to fuck it up.
All right. Send it to me, and I'll read it in the post-production.
Yeah, I will. I will do that. It's pretty much the essence of it is the Marines are haloing in onto the roof and clearing the building floor by floor. I forget what the Army is doing, but the Air Force is taking out an extended lease on it or something.
Come on, man. We send a drone in. That's what we do.
Even better.
And then if anything's left, then we take a lease out on it.
There wasn't too much drone action going on when I was in the Marine Corps, and I heard that joke.
Yeah, I know. I love picking on each other. Gotta love
it. Yeah, it's good stuff. and we all need each other,
Oh, yeah. I gotta do this swim for the Navy SEAL Foundation, and, we pick on each other, but we're all out there swimming.
Yeah, no joke. That's good stuff.
Oh, man. All right, man. So where can we send people? Where do you want them going to check you out and learn more?
Well, my website for BuzzSource, it's buzzsource.com. .co with not a .com, but a .co.
Right.
Is a good place to get a little overview of my business. And there's a chat function on there that comes directly to me if you want to talk to me and connect. If you opt into that, you're not going to get too many emails, but here and there I'll send you something about what's going on and some useful information for you to use, or what I'm doing. Like I would typically send a podcast like this out to the audience, and a lot of stuff about my groups. Right. But individual clients, for what I would call my private clients or my full service clients, those are all handled through me, and we have a pretty extended conversation to see if there's a good fit.
Right.
However, I do have these two groups that are really going well, and they're new, but they're getting a great response. One is Lead Gen Live, and the other one is Internet Marketing Live. These are groups where people send in questions or hot seat requests, and we'll get on live every week and work on their projects, work on their sales funnels, work on their ads, work on their online strategy, things like that. And the second group is more of a basic group, a foundational group for people who are just wanting to get their businesses online or start marketing online. And the other one is more advanced and more kind of Jedi once they get the basics in place. So that is a way that people can work with my team and I that is less, well, it's more like $100 a month versus
right, 50,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that exact thing. All right, so tell me that again. It's Lead Gen Live.
Yeah, like short for lead generation, Lead Gen Live, and Internet Marketing Live is, I believe, what's going to be the name of the second group, because that's brand new in response to people who wanted more basic things that are kind of just getting started online, and either brick and mortar businesses that want to market online, or people starting with a new business or a new offer that they want to bring online. So these are groups that are separate from my private client services, but you get the same people between myself and my team. They're helping you out. We have separate Facebook groups for this, so there's daily interaction, and there's the live calls that people can come on. And it's turning out to be a very good rather than get on and teach a course, which I had something called Lead Gen University for a year or so, that was more like teaching courses. Like I had a whole curriculum, but I decided that a much more interesting way to do it and more relevant is to help people on demand with what they're doing right now.
Right.
So you could put in a hot seat for that week, and we would build your sales funnel or build a website or put an ad campaign together, things like that.
Right.
We're actually getting shit done is what I'm getting at, not just talking about it. Right. So so that's been a cool thing. And also, especially with your audience, Wes, want to let you know, another way that I do work with people that's not nearly as expensive is with the vets that I mentor. I work with some veterans, usually only a handful at a time, and coach and mentor them pretty much for free, for practically free. And so I have guys that have started businesses. I have guys that have gone from homeless to having a successful business. I have people of all different stages kind of in what they're doing, but they like to not only tap into me for business knowledge, but have that person they're talking to be a vet that can understand where they've been and what they know and what they've seen. You know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's kind of a way to give back that I feel really good about.
Very cool. Well, I will link to those. And do they go to the group and see how to join from there, or do you have a separate URL you send them?
Yeah, I'll send you the URL for the application form.
Okay.
And then I'll get them to where they would fit best. But starting out at buzzsource.co is a great way to get in touch with me, or here on Facebook. I do a lot on Facebook, so that's a great way as well if you want to connect on there. And then we can kind of just see what direction would be best, if any, for us to help you out.
Yeah, Okay. Very cool. I will link to it. Well, man, Brian Keith Noonan, all the way from the Carolinas. Thanks for carving out some time. It's way past Miller time for you, so
gonna get to it.
I'll let you get after it, man. Thanks for coming on the show, dude. Have a great night.
It was an honor, Wes. Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.
Bye-bye.
What did I tell you, huh? What a good guy. I love the fact that, he got down and dirty with what he was talking about, his wins, his losses. Talks about, his issues with ClickFunnels, how good copy is so important, how relationship building hasn't changed. And that will always be true. Humans are humans, right? How we connect is not going to change. That's why you got to understand sales. You have to understand empathy. Part of the Make Every Sale course, I talk about the better prospecting system, BETR, bonding, empathy, trust, and rapport. That will never change. You have to connect with your buyers. You have to get down to the truth. And that's why they talk about having multiple touches, really digging in to make yourself known and be known to that prospect so they're comfortable working with you. I love the fact that, he talks about, he was self-taught. He started out making cold calls, how he keeps his hands in the ad creation. And that's something I always talk about with my clients. It's so tough to outsource your marketing. Sure, you can bring in somebody like me to spice it up, to light a fire under it, but it's your message. I can't make up your message. I can pull it out of you. And usually that is the problem. We're too close to ourselves. You can't read the label from inside the bottle. So having somebody come in from the outside like me can help you, but it's still your message. You've got to own it. It's got to be in your voice. You've got to be comfortable. It has to represent you. So if you need help in that, I don't talk about that a whole lot, but I do offer that type of consulting and coaching to help you refine your message, find your message, refine it, and get it out there. So if you do need some help like that, just go to thesaleswhisperer.com, go to the Contact Us page, and let's set up a time to talk to see if I'd be a fit for you or find somebody that can help you if I'm not right. But if it's affordable, lifetime, ongoing support you need, it's Make Every Sale, baby. MakeEverySale.com. Come join us. Get the help you need. Because now that I hit publish on this, I'm jumping into our weekly call. So you're missing that right now because this is going to be published about a week later. But you can make the next one. Right now, we're doing them on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. And then when you join, you get the 41 videos, the 60-plus page workbook, access to the past calls, and immediate real-time access to the group. So come join us, all right? And then leave us a 5-star review, pretty please. Share this with your loved ones, your coworkers. And remember to sell different.